Welcome to Spiritual Foundations for Life. The 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution officially abolished slavery in the United States on December the 18th, 1865. So, how many slaves were there on the next day on December the 19th, 1865? Well, legally and in reality, there were none because they had now all been legally set free. However, many people continued to live like slaves. Some did so because they had not been told, that they had never learned the truth that they were indeed free. Some others heard the truth, but they didn't believe the truth, and so they continued to live like they had lived in the past as slaves. Others reasoned that since they were still doing the same things that slaves did, they must still be slaves. And so they maintained their slave identity because of the things they did. One former slave, though, heard the good news and received it with great joy. And he checked out the validity of the amendment and discovered that the highest authority in the land had decreed his freedom, and that it had cost that authority a tremendous price to set him free. And as a result, the slave's life was transformed. He correctly reasoned that it would be hypocritical to believe that he was still a slave rather than believe the truth that he was free. So he determined to now live by what he knew to be true, and his experiences began to change rather dramatically after that. He realized that his old slave owner had no authority over him, and so he no longer needed to obey that old authority. And he gladly now served the one who had set him free. In Galatians chapter 4, verses 1 to 7, Paul says that we were like little children, in verse 1, who were subservient with our guardians and our trustees, similar to the way that slaves were under the authority of their masters. However, even though we had a birthright, we could not become heirs until the time appointed by our Father. But according to Galatians chapter 4, verses 4 and 5, when the set time had fully come, God sent his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to what? To redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship. We were enslaved to the elemental spiritual forces of the world, according to Galatians chapter 4, verse 3, until Christ came and set us free. We were in bondage to the Old Testament Mosaic law or to other religious systems. But when Christ came, he did two things for those who were under the yoke of slavery, according to Galatians chapter 5, verse 1. First, he redeemed those who were under the law. The Jews had been enslaved to the whole Mosaic system. It was a system of legalism. Jesus came to set us free from that system of legalism. The second thing Jesus did through the incarnation, death, and resurrection of Jesus, he secured for all believers their birthright to be adopted as sons and daughters of God. Galatians chapter 4, verse 6 and 7 says that because you are sons, God has sent forth the Spirit of his Son into your hearts, crying out, Abba, Father. Therefore you are no longer a slave, but a son, if a son, then an heir of God through Christ. As believers, we may not feel free from sin, and we may not feel like children of God, but that in reality is who we are. Our position of Christ is real truth, and we must choose, therefore, to believe it. The Holy Spirit now resides in our hearts, in the core of our lives, ensuring our position in God's family. The Spirit then moves us to pray, Abba, Father, according to Galatians chapter 4, verse 6. That word Abba is the Aramaic word for father. It's similar to small children using it to address their father. It's similar to the words in English, daddy, papa. See, the right and privilege to call God Abba implies intimacy and trust as opposed to slavery and legalism. Our key point today is that it is not by means of an accidental birth that we've been adopted as sons and daughters into the family of God, okay? It's not by means of an accidental birth that we've been adopted as sons and daughters into the family of God. It is what God intended to do all the way along. Our key verse is Ephesians chapter 1, verses 4 and 5. In love, he predestined us for adoption to sonship through Jesus Christ, in accordance with what? His pleasure and will. God bless you. See you tomorrow for another episode of Spiritual Foundations for Life.